March 8, 2014, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 has gone missing en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. At 1:19 a.m., the pilots were instructed to contact Ho Chi Minh Air Traffic Control, but the call was never made. Less than 2 minutes later, the plane's electronic signature disappeared from radar screens. It seemed as if the transponder had been switched off.
The transponder is a device and component installed in the aircraft navigation and transmission system. Its intention is to transmit the location, height, altitude, airspeed indication, direction to air traffic control. The pilots can turn off the transponder within the aircraft. It's easy as just turning a switch on a dial on the unit, on a transponder.
When you actually switch a transponder off, all that the air traffic controller will then now see is just the blip. It no longer knows who this blip is. It no longer has accurate information about what the blip is doing.
It appeared as if the plane had simply vanished. Records from the early hours of that morning reveal a scramble to locate the Boeing 777.
When you actually declare an aircraft lost, it's a big thing. You don't want to unnecessarily alarm states or alarm the next of kin if you're not absolutely sure. Because there's no going back once you've declared an aircraft is lost.
According to records, at 6:14 a.m., around the time the plane was due in Beijing, a decision was made. It had been 5 hours since MH370 made its last radio contact. Authorities decided to activate search and rescue.
We have activated the military, our Air Force and our Navy. Our National Security Council with our Coast Guard is also on it. And thirdly, we're working very closely with our neighbors.
In the days that followed, Malaysian authorities struggled to explain the situation to a public desperate for information. With no debris found, authorities could not confirm if the plane had crashed. Neither could they say where the plane had actually gone. Answers only led to more questions. Out of the 239 people on board, about 2/3 were Chinese nationals. Many were vocal in their frustration at the long, uncertain wait. And Steve Wang was one of them.
It is just a disaster and everything is in chaos. I want to know what exactly happens to our loved ones, to the plane.
That first week was really agonizing. From an intellectual perspective, I had already reasoned through, and based on a lot of research, had already said, you know, it doesn't make any sense that this is a crash. I'm quite sure it's an abduction. But everybody seemed to be looking at a crash, and they kept coming up with these reports of debris sightings. And so every time you get one, you know, your heart crashes into your stomach because it's like, oh, it is a crash. You know, and then it wouldn't be confirmed. No, it wasn't part of the plane. And then you'd be hopeful again. And then there would be another crash, an emotional crash. And so it was this conflict between my head telling me that what they were doing wasn't making any sense, and my heart still listening to all the news, going up and down and being afraid that they would find it was an explosion or a crash of some sort, but yet hoping it wasn't, because I would far rather have him being held hostage someplace, meaning there's a chance that he could still be alive, than the fact that the plane's under the water, right?
MH370 lost contact with air traffic control over the South China Sea. And that was where the search teams from over 10 countries focused their efforts in that first week. But on the 6th day, without any explanation, authorities widened their search to the Andaman Sea off the coast of Penang. It was hundreds of miles away from where the public was told the plane had disappeared. Soon, the operation in the South China Sea was called off entirely, and the search focused on the Andaman Sea. It was later revealed that primary radar at 2 Malaysian military bases had tracked an unidentified blip as it flew across the peninsula towards the Andaman Sea.
The Royal Malaysian Air Force primary radar data showed that an aircraft which was believed but not confirmed to be MH370 did indeed turn back. It then flew in a westerly direction back over Peninsular Malaysia before turning northwest. Up until the point at which it left military primary radar coverage, these movements are consistent with deliberate action by someone on the plane.
MH370 was traveling in the complete opposite direction of where it was meant to go. It had made a U-turn back towards Malaysia instead of flying to Beijing. This was a shocking revelation, implying that the disappearance of MH370 was no accident, but a planned operation.
The first time I think is totally impossible, as I don't believe that a flight could, just turn around and fly to their snowfield, and for no reason.
The mystery deepened with the release of satellite data by British company Inmarsat. Data received from the plane showed that after flying in the opposite direction across the Malaysian peninsula, the jetliner then made another left turn and continued for hours towards the southern Indian Ocean.
According to this new data, flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean.
The southern Indian Ocean. This was a part of the world that had few inhabitants and saw little ocean or air traffic. Why would the plane be there?
It looks like definitely an unlawful, deliberate act to park the aeroplane in where it is alleged to be the loneliest place on earth.
Investigators quickly zoomed in on the people on board, focusing on those with a technical knowledge of planes. Eventually, all 227 passengers were cleared. But the 12 crew remained officially under suspicion, especially the pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah.
I just don't see any logic. I don't see any reason why he would want to be a rogue pilot.
Four months after the plane's disappearance, the sister of Captain Zahari finally breaks her silence to defend her brother's name.
It hurts. It hurts when people start accusing him without evidence, you know, because we know he did not have that kind of makeup.
But to others, Zahari had the opportunity and the capability.
Why greatest opportunity? He is already sitting in the cockpit. Why the greatest capability? Because he is trained to do whatever he can with the aircraft. But emotionally, I say no way that can happen. Emotionally. Emotions are generally not driven by logic. Logic is looking at the three things again: capability, opportunity, and motive. It seems to point at that direction.